Hey, everybody, it's Erik. I'm a fellow recovering person as well as a therapist who helps people recover from various addictions. Today, we're going to talk about the simple question that comes up to us a lot is what if I see someone I know in meetings? Like, what do I do? And I think it's a common fear. It's when we start off in recovery, we're really nervous to even look at ourselves. We're nervous to even talk about any of this, let alone people going to a meeting. Like we're afraid to even go to a meeting. Who will see me? Now, with Zoom, it's interesting. You don't have to slink out of the car, in a trench coat with sunglasses to not be seen, which and then to go in there. And there's always that initial fear of when you walk into the room, will I know anybody? And then you're sitting there in the chair, usually in the basement of a church in a 12 step, whether it's, AA or SA or GA, Gamblers Anonymous, or OA or whatever. And we then worry about anybody that walks into the room. So I've been in meetings for years, like 30 plus years. Have I ran into people? I have. What can I say? What do we do? So here's some things. One is they're probably just as embarrassed as you are. Okay. If you've been more sober and maybe in the rooms longer and they're new, they're probably more scared than you are. So that's something to consider, that we're both here probably for the same reason. And perhaps we're just checking things out to see if this is for us. You probably have thought about this, but this is something you don't have to share your full story as to why you're there. Okay. No one's going to know more than what you tell them. And most meetings that are healthy focus on the solution. They're reading from the AA book, most likely, or recovery literature. And there is the focus on the solution. It's not like I'm going to share the details of my problem with 10 people. So that's something to consider. You can always get up and leave. Then the question is, how can you face them when you see them in public again? uh, my experience is I weather it through. I weather through the meeting and I share what I feel comfortable sharing. I use the steps. The steps talk about I don't try to control things that are beyond my control. Like control freak is usually what addicts struggle with. We want to be in control. So I didn't allow all these people in the room. I want what I want, etc. So we let go of control. We trust God to bring about His will in our life and the power to carry it out. And if it's His will that, we'll say the guy's name is Mark or Mary, I see them, and see it as God's will. I don't know of a time where it didn't work out. Either we go to separate meetings or we go to different meetings or we don't run into each other again, or we become actually good friends. We, well, we're not in 12 steps to judge people. It's a safe place to talk about our challenges, which are really the heart of any 12 step is I'm selfish, I'm so self-oriented, or I'm dishonest, or I'm resentful or fearful. The word anonymous was attached, and of course I wasn't there, but from what little history I know, and I've heard some, but there's definitely people more educated than me. The anonymous factor was there to not be bragging about how much sobriety I have, and I'm Erik Bohlin, and um, I would speak for AA, like I'm going to, yeah, no, humility was the key. It was staying humble and simple And so that was the first reason for anonymity. I think other reasons had to do with embarrassment and keeping things safe and confidential. There is a phrase. It says, "What you hear here and see here, let it stay here. Here, here." Should I get the phone? I think I'm going to let it ring just to show you that I have a normal life. The So we recover. Yeah, we recover, and with time, it gets better and better and better. We don't panic. We've learned, actually, I don't know if it's about sobriety as much as we've learned to let go of control, learn to trust God in all things, and to see that there's a good purpose in things. Let's talk about Zoom meetings. Zoom is interesting. It's like most anything, it can be really great and it can have challenges. So here is the good news. In the old days, it was, and I'll say hard because I'll be the therapist that's encouraging people to attend a meeting, whatever the meeting is. I would say, well, go to 10 to 15 different meetings. Try to find a meeting that's really focused on health that you feel comfortable with. The demographics are right. Time of day. Well, you used to have to look on a paper directory like this. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. And you'd have to thumb through and figure out what is the code. What is an open meeting? What is a closed meeting? Open means it's open to anybody. Closed means it's only for those who are seeking alcohol sobriety. Now you just push a button. You could go to a meeting that starts right after work ends, which could be 6 o'clock for me. And I don't have to then wait to drive in the car, go to a 7 o'clock meeting, then come home at 8:30. I could actually just push buttons and do a meeting here. The anonymity factor. I don't even have to go to a meeting in the state. In the old days, people would have driven miles to not go to their little hometown church to go to a meeting there. They'd maybe drive to another county so they wouldn't be recognized. This is with the touch of a button. When people want anonymity, they can actually do something where their screen isn't shared and perhaps use their middle name or a pseudonym. I do think the challenge with that is it being honest, and how far will that go? We can't, this is a colorful phrase, so brace yourself, but we can't save our ass and our face at the same time. We get to pick one or the other, and saving face usually does not work well. I'm not saying we should have privacy or anonymity. It's just that if our whole goal is to try to control who knows things, it's just still trying to control. And I know many people that won't go to a meeting, and then their problems with addiction has them found out in a public way. And here, the very fear they had about being found out, they got found out in public versus it affects career, family, and everything, versus being found out at a 12-step group where everybody's there for the same reason, trying to get better, where there's potential friends. Zoom has advantage when it comes to passing on information. One can put another meeting details in a chat or an upcoming announcement for an event or something. It's just very simple. You can cut and paste and download. Where in a meeting in person, you would go around and it would be passed through, and you might have to write down what it was, or there were flyers here. People can take pictures of, say, like information they want. Exchanging information like, hey, Bill, I'd like to get together for lunch. Oh, well, here, I'll post my information in the chat. So there's a lot of advantages, and I'll probably stop here with the advantages. Here are some of the disadvantages, which I think it's good to speak. And I'm not speaking for the whole of any 12-step group. I'm just speaking about um, what happens is that people will show up later. And it's one thing to be late to an in-person meeting. And I've sat through a lot of in-person meetings where people might actually show up halfway through or 5 minutes before it ends and want to speak. And I'll admit I had kind of a mild grudge, but the reality is, Erik, stop. It's better for him to be in a meeting than not. We don't know that this meeting might not save his life. Is it disruptive? Sure it is. Does it feel funny to have someone come in, not participate in any of the meeting, readings, or anything at the last minute, and then want to share and they have no idea? It's just that. But I've learned to live with that. In Zoom, the same thing happens. And in Zoom, we might not be even aware. It's a good thing that people can be on lists and just show up, and they may not even be qualified, meaning they're not even sure. What I mean by qualified is, say, like it's a program like NA or CA, and they'd be becoming from another program and they heard this was a good meeting, but do we really know what they struggle with and why they're there? In person, I think it's more likely for them to get the attention they need, where someone welcomes them and someone says, "Hey, what brings you to NA?" And then they'd say, "Well, I heard this was a good meeting, but this is NA. I thought it was coming to a Alcoholics Anonymous group," or something like that. So some of those details are worked out. The other challenge I find is, in a real meeting, people would really participate. They wouldn't be cooking in the background. They wouldn't be putting kind of a bag over their head and go do something else, look at their phone or walk to the store and all that. I mean, that can happen on Zoom, or drive. That's the blessing. One could be driving home from work and go to a meeting. Are they fully participating in a meeting? Are they really listening and intently? Or are they actually looking at traffic and possibly doing a whole bunch of other things while being in a meeting? And how does that affect the quality of meetings? I like the phrase, this is just me, where we encourage as much in person feel in terms of the meeting. So we encourage you to have your video on. Um, so I think those are some of the challenges. Anonymity factor. Here's another one which I'm not sure has ever happened, but could people be recording what's being said? In theory, someone could. They could just record, say, like someone in a public, um, capacity that they work in public, and someone wanted to seek out and record the recording. That would be unfortunate if that ever happened. Is that likely to happen in an in-person meeting? Probably. It could still happen. Someone could have a mic or recording device. But what you don't have is video capability. What you do, it's just, I think it's much more harder. And so something to be aware is, our Zoom, and this is, I'm not going to answer this question, are Zoom meetings as anonymous as in-person meetings? And here we thought it was the opposite, that I could somehow go unnoticed in a Zoom meeting, but maybe that's not the case. The other dynamic that happens, and I think it's great, any way people can connect, it's worth taking the risk. Zoom allows for a phone call, and some people don't have video or smartphones. They're likely to have a more old-fashioned basic phone, and they're able to call in and participate in the meeting. What they don't get are any people's physical reactions. It's harder to know when to share because it's all by phone. And we can see them, meaning we can see their box with their phone number displayed, which, if you're concerned about anonymity, I'm not sure there's a way around that unless you go to the meeting and then have the host quickly change your name to your name so that you're not inadvertently giving your phone number out to the world. See, here's the thing: one could be sharing at a meeting and a new person could show up, and you really can't quite catch that they are a new person. Where in person, you'd see them walk in and you go, wow, I haven't seen this person. So then I'll adjust my share. But when there's a whole bunch of boxes, and you might not see all the boxes as they are on page two, you could be sharing something that you're not quite sure if your boss is there at the meeting. So, anyway, these are things you probably have thought about. I'm not sure I have any answers, but I felt the need to get information out there to help people think about these things, because I am, as a therapist, I think it's my job to give them, in the middle of, while they're trying to just put their life back together, to give them some ideas that it's important to watch for these things. Some simple solutions: one is just be aware that things may not be as anonymous as one might think. Two, be aware of what you share. Just like, don't share as much in meetings. Something of a delicate personal nature, share with your sponsor one-on-one. I think that's where Zoom is really great. If your sponsor is a little bit far away, you can have that visual feedback and go through the steps together. Share screen, by the way, that's a cool feature. When it comes to sharing, I share the AA book. I can just push buttons, as you've seen in past videos. If we're writing out step work, I can just type it up. It's on the screen. It seems, in a way, a little bit more focused than if we're both hunched over. But I do like old fashioned, just paper and pencil and an AA book. We took some people through the steps at a beautiful place. A member said, come on over to my house. It was near a lake. It was just great. So there's something very special about that too. And there's something really nice about in-person meetings, to drive all the way there, to get the hug, hello and goodbye, and to have coffee with your friends. And as much as Zoom seems like we're communicating, I don't think it's communicating. And here I'm communicating this information to you, but I don't think it's the same. So I wish you well in your journey in recovery. Feel free to leave comments or questions or criticisms of things we could do better. You take care, and we'll see you later.